Hi all, I'm Melissa, and I'm afraid of my own mom. You see, she's already a middle-aged woman, yet she looks as if she's still in her prime. And I suspect that mom remains young by using some horrible forbidden methods. Mom has always been quite a looker, while all the other girls and their moms in my kindergarten and later at school looked normal. My mother always seemed to be my younger sister, not a parent. All the other children were envious of me. And I was glad that my mom was that awesome. Well, yeah, I used to compare my mom with other girls' moms. I've often noticed how older women stopped being attractive with age. And believe me, some changes were pretty swift and drastic. Yet my mom managed to age without losing her beauty. We have quite a large family. I've got 3 older sisters, and the oldest of them, Angela, was the first one to notice mom's unnatural youth. You see, when Angela was 18, she already had wrinkles and hid them using cosmetics. Angela and our mom quarreled a lot, and once I realized that my sister was quite right in her suspicions. Once Angela's boyfriend told her that our mom looked better than her. He even said that he'd better date our mom than Angela. According to him, our mom was a real woman who knew how to take care of herself. Angela, on the other hand, already had many wrinkles, hair that felt like hay, and smelled of sweat instead of flowers and fruits. That very evening, Angela broke up with her boyfriend and immediately moved out of our house. In parting, my sister accused mom of being a witch, because according to Angela, it was clearly impossible for a woman with many children to have such a body. Later on, when our family lounged on a beach, I could not but compare mom and my own sisters. Funny thing was, it turned out that the others were comparing them too. Some guys even asked one of my sisters for permission to get acquainted with her beautiful daughter, and they clearly weren't talking about me. Well, our tanned mother really looked gorgeous in a swimsuit, and she looked much better than the girls. She looked thinner and had no skin problems. Suffice to say, my sisters didn't like that either. So soon after vacation, they moved out too. Now there were only 2 of us in the whole house. And soon I realized that mom's beauty looked unnatural indeed. I couldn't understand, how did she manage to stay beautiful and cute despite her age? I even compared her old photos with the photos taken in the aforementioned vacation. There was no difference whatsoever. Of course, mom told me about makeup, skincare, shampoos, and sports. I listened to her and even tried to mimic her. Yet, well, I was already sure that mom's beauty flew from some more sinister sources. Besides, my sisters were also adamantly sure that mom was hiding something from us. At some point, Angela even gathered a meeting and told me that I had to search our mother's house to find the source of her youth. Apparently, witches have spell books with notes concerning such things. Well, if mom was a witch, she didn't keep any of her witchy magical trinkets at home, that's for sure. I searched the whole house and even found 2 envelopes full of cash. Yet there were no magical books or suspicious diaries lying around. Well, mom had a lot of books and magazines and such, but all of those were pretty trivial. And then Angela told me that I was in danger. Apparently my sisters got better when they moved out of my mom's house. Even their sleep got better. According to Angela's words, she noticed that and saw a fortune teller. And that psychic told my sister that mom was literally draining youth out of her children to remain beautiful herself. That's why my sisters look so bad. Well, I became really afraid, and even asked mom directly whether she cursed me or not. Mom only laughed, told me not to be stupid and pay more attention to skincare and sports. Okay then. For a few weeks, I believed mom. But once, I noticed a bottle full of some strange liquid in the bathroom. The bottle was very large and its contents clearly smelled unnatural. And later on, I saw mom putting that stuff on while doing some sort of ritual. Well, then I timed everything right and actually managed to steal that bottle. Of course, I never told anything to my sisters. They left me alone in the house that belonged to a witch after all. Apparently, the bottle really contained some sort of a youth potion. When I put that stuff on, my acne cleared up and my skin got much better. Besides, mom was really upset when she realized that the bottle was gone. Now I feel kind of torn. On the one hand, I don't really believe that mom could ever harm me. And on the other hand, there's Mom's unnatural youth, and the potion I stole from her really was some sort of magic. That's why I'm so afraid now. What if Mom really drained my sisters of their beauty? And now it's gonna be my turn? According to Mom, I have only to take care of myself and go in for sports and everything's gonna be fine. According to Angela, I'm in danger and really need to run. What should I do? Whom should I believe? I don't know.
Many greetings. I'm Catherine, and I've apparently brought up 4 incredibly stupid and lazy girls. Honestly, they believe in magic and witchcraft, yet they lack common sense to even take proper care of themselves. My own mother always told me that I should look good at all times. You can be the very best and the kindest person in the world, yet people will still judge a book by its cover. And if you look ugly, unkempt, and messy, no one will care about you. I've always tried to pass that wisdom down to my daughters, yet apparently I have failed in that regard. I guess I'm not that good of a teacher after all. Otherwise, they wouldn't be as stupid as they are. Poor things. I confess I didn't pay much attention to my eldest daughter's upbringing. The other 3 took all my time and attention, and I never had enough money to hire a personal tutor. Maybe that was the root of all of our problems. Angela never liked makeup as a whole. She knew about it, obviously, as I wore some all the time. She just stubbornly refused to use it. Didn't really know where she got those ideas, yet I always tried to respect her opinion. I remember there was a time I was even eager to buy her some rare eco-vegan makeup for her, if she ever desired so, and I told her about that idea. But in vain. The worst thing is that Angela never liked shampoos, body sprays, or hygiene items as a whole. I even had to argue with her to take a regular shower. She just ate as much fast food as she wanted, stayed in her room for days, and paid no heed to her looks. Well, looks didn't matter much at that point. It was just unhealthy to the extreme. That's how Angela ended up overweight, smelly, and already suffering from skin problems at the young age of 18. And all she's done is make a mockery of herself by following some weird principles of her own. My other 3 daughters, on the other hand, are, well, just plain lazy. Those 3 took an example from their elder sister and never bothered actually thinking about the consequences of their actions. Even my youngest daughter, the one who resembles me the most, was just as lazy as the others. Well, at least Melissa bathed more than once a week. And then my eldest accused me of being a witch. When I heard that for the first time, I laughed and laughed for a half-hour straight. Basically, they said that I was a witch because I bathed and took care of myself. The audacity. Of course, I told my daughters they'd look much younger and prettier if they actually made an effort to do so. The funny thing is, they were actually offended by my words. Accusing someone of witchcraft is so much easier and less work than doing anything about it. You see, I do a lot of stuff to look young and beautiful. I work out 3 times a week, go to the swimming pool twice a week, and never skip morning exercises. Besides, I know a lot about makeup, visit a beauty parlor at least once a month, and use a spectrum of expensive care products. All that stuff takes a lot of time and effort, but it allows me to look young for my age. Yet my girls are just plain lazy and would never do so much themselves. Therefore, they don't believe me. It's easier for them to believe some magic, rituals, and tricks, because honestly, it seems like a lot less effort than what I actually have to do. I even played a joke on my youngest. You see, I really hated her looking so unkempt, so I bought an impressive-looking bottle at a yard sale, dumped an expensive, energizing body mask into it, and pretended to do some occult stuff with that potion. And then I accidentally forgot the bottle with the mask in the bathroom. Apparently my trick worked. Melissa took the potion and started using it. Now her skin problems are a thing of the past, and she actually looks much healthier. My dear. Unfortunately, she never actually established a link between bathing and being healthy. She just thinks a magic potion did the trick, and that's honestly just so sad. Hey there, I'm Gloria, and boy, do I have a lot of problems. Sometimes I think that my life is totally unfair because I've always tried to do good. And in return, I feel like I've only ever received pain and suffering. Ever since early childhood, I really enjoyed helping the unfortunate. You could say it was like my hobby. Some people are really into collecting stamps, some can't live without new dolls, and I was unable to stay indifferent to those who needed help. I mainly gave aid to animals, but when I was about 12, I even brought home a homeless person. And my parents, well, they weren't very happy about it, though. My whole life was dedicated to helping the unfortunate. I became a volunteer and served food for the homeless on weekends. After school, I usually went to the local pet shelter and spent my remaining free time raising money for charity. I really tried to help every unfortunate soul. I wasn't expecting a reward or something extra as thanks for my actions. You see, I just felt so much better when I did something for everybody else's sake. And that's pretty much all it was. When I finished school, I was able to do so much more. I became a student of the sociology department and finally turned my hobby into a passion. Now, I helped several hospices and nursing homes. I wasn't alone either. I organized a whole charity movement and raised money for a multitude of projects. At first, it was quite hard and even a bit intimidating, but my team and I finally pushed through. I'm not a movement leader or a motivational speaker or anything like that. I still have to work hard and serve as a living example to all of my followers. My flat, for example, is always full of animals. There's an endless stream of stray cats and dogs that I'm trying to find new owners for. Yet sometimes I've got a bit more of exotic cases. Once I adopted a raven for 2 whole months before I found him a new lifelong friend. Another time, I had to provide a 2-week shelter for monkeys. Oh, my neighbors were not fond of those. And once, my friends even brought me an ill boa constrictor from a local circus. Life sure is never boring. But still, I somehow managed to find time to study and work as well as perform my job as a volunteer. Still, I'm always running up short on money. Often I even have to eat cat food together with my stray babies. Unfortunately, when I ended up having problems myself, I wasn't prepared. First of all, it started out with a headache problem. Recently, you see, I've been having an increasingly large number of headaches. I'm sure that they were just a result of some difficult period in my life I was going through. I've got exams to pass. My organization was doing a difficult fundraising project for a very sick little girl. And one of the orphanages I care for was in trouble. I spent day after day running from university to law office and to all the other places where I was enlisted as a volunteer. So I took some pills for now and then hoped for the best. That's all I really could do. But then more symptoms appeared. Headache was followed by weakness and nausea, and eventually I felt so sick that I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. So I had to call an ambulance. The doctors told me that things were really bad, and it turned out that I was a victim of some pretty rare disease. It got to the point where the pills were practically useless and an urgent operation was required. I needed a bone marrow transplant. Otherwise, I would very soon become disabled or even waste away altogether. I quickly agreed to do anything in my power to stay alive. I didn't want to die. I was only 20. Unfortunately, the operation wasn't free, not even a little bit. They were able to do it right away, which was great, but it was going to cost way too much money, and I simply didn't have enough to cover it. But of course, I immediately turned to my charities and organizations for help. My colleagues started raising money as soon as possible, yet the process of money raising, as we're all very aware of, wasn't a particularly quick one, and I urgently needed that transplant. So I called on those whom I considered the closest people to me. I asked my parents for help. You see, the thing is, my parents are quite wealthy indeed, and I've rarely asked them for money before since I was able to do everything myself. Yet now I had no other choice. I explained everything to them and asked for help earnestly. But the worst thing is, Mom and Dad didn't even want to talk to me. They asked my older sister to speak with me on their behalf, and she told me that the family had actually abandoned me to my own devices long ago. Mom and Dad would refuse to aid me even if I lay dying on their doorstep. She told me that I made my choice in life long ago and then hung up on me. I was more than shocked, I can tell you. I simply didn't know what to do. And even now, I have no idea how to react to such news. I've never thought that my own family would just up and abandon me like that. Of course, I wasn't the perfect daughter. I moved out of my home early and never paid too much attention to my parents. Yet I was always trying to do good in the world and never did anything to them. And now I just feel betrayed. So I guess now I have to count on my own luck. If my colleagues manage to raise enough money in time, then everything will be okay. And if not, well, I'll either become disabled or die. Tough luck for me, huh?
I'm Bertha, Gloria's elder sister, and I can assure you that my sister isn't that much of an angel. Our parents had 3 children, me, my brother Max, and sister Gloria. We were just a typical middle-class family. Mom and Dad earned a decent living and pampered us. Not that much, but still. And of course, Gloria was the most beloved child. When she was born, I was already 10, and Max was already 8. Both of us understood that Gloria needed much more care and attention. So me and Max soon got used to helping Mom and Dad as much as we could. We studied well, did all the chores, and sometimes I even took care of the baby all night long so Mom could get some sleep. When Gloria grew up, nothing really changed. She received only the best toys, gifts, and presents. Mom and Dad were really forgiving towards her, and she grew up used to that. Yeah, my sister was really into charity, and that seemed really cool. Unfortunately, Gloria was sure that our own family never ever needed help. And sometimes it got real messy. Once, when I was already a college student, Mom broke her leg. I studied in another city, Max was a senior, and already lived in a dorm. Each of us called Mom and offered help. Mom thanked us but declined our offer. Therefore, we were sure that she was being aided by Gloria. But then a neighbor called me and told me that Mom was doing all the chores all alone with a broken leg, and Gloria gave her 0 aid. I rushed home and discovered that my sister worked on her charity projects instead of helping Mom. I called Max. Both of us take turns looking after Mom. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Mom still got a limp because she strained her broken leg too much those days. We asked Gloria why she didn't help Mom, but my sister kept answering that she had more important work to do. She was sure that her charity projects were more important than our mom's health. And then when Max checked his piggy bank before prom, it turned out empty. My brother had a lot of holiday jobs and worked hard to earn money for a nice suit. But Gloria took all his cash because one of the shelters needed an extra $200. Well, yeah, she didn't spend that money on herself. She gave it to the shelter. But that was Max's money, not hers. And she never even told him when she took it. Thankfully, Mom and Dad compensated my brother, and Gloria seemingly realized that she shouldn't do that again. Over the years, the 3 of us went our separate ways. I married, Max started a family of his own, Gloria moved out of home, entered some university, and apparently spent all of her free time aiding various charities. Once or twice, I've even seen her on TV. She was protecting something. I can't really remember specifics, but then Dad had a heart attack. This happens quite often to older people with health problems. You can't really do anything about it. Unfortunately, Mom never told me and Max about that until it was almost too late. She didn't want to bother us and didn't say anything to us. So she looked after him alone and was on the verge of her own heart attack. Max and me immediately came home. We took turns looking after our parents, concluded agreements with doctors and nurses, working with the insurance, and so on and so forth. Soon it became clear that we couldn't reasonably balance our work and our duties to the parents. So I just left work and moved to Mom and Dad's house. Max couldn't do so. His wife was expecting a baby, so he had to provide for his family. Therefore, Max and I made an agreement. I looked after Mom and Dad on a regular basis, and he was always there to cover for me. We actually called Gloria at that moment. We told her everything, asked for help, but once again she basically told us that she had more important things to do and hung up. Max and I did just fine without her help though. Soon, both Mom and Dad got better. Dad recovered so well that he was even able to return to work despite the doctor's bleak forecasts. All in all, everything was great until Gloria's last call. I still can't believe she actually had the nerve to ask us for help. She always made it clear that she didn't want to have anything in common with the family. She was never there when we needed her, when we asked her for help, and now she dared to ask us back? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have denied her of help. Still, I can't pity her even now. She never pitied us. She always considered us to be just an expendable resource. And even now, she remembered us only when she got into trouble herself. I'm pretty sure that we all get what we deserve. And if our oh-so-virtuous Gloria won't be able to get help, guess she really did something wrong and fully deserved all her troubles.
Hey, I'm Victoria, and according to lots of people, I feel no shame. Well, they're not wrong. I'm not ashamed of anything, and I don't think I ever should be. They told me that I should have at least felt embarrassed when I entered the boys' locker room at school that day. Apparently, my face wasn't red and I wasn't gasping, so they immediately assumed that I was just a shameless creature. Nobody actually realized that I had a very valid reason to do what I did. That's why I've never felt ashamed of any of it. The boys were screaming, the teachers were screaming. Someone even tried to push me out of the locker room. The whole school condemned me. But I knew that I was right, and I wasn't afraid or ashamed or anything like that. Later on, friends told me that my stone face was the most alarming sign for other people. Well, as I've already told you, I had a very valid reason to enter the locker room. You see, it was the first year of our middle school, and a new girl got transferred into our class. All the other kids immediately made her the outcast and turned into practically literal animals hunting her, bullying her. They called it testing her strength. Yeah, whatever. Apparently, the boys had a lot of fun playing football with her bag, or hiding her clothes, or dumping her bag on the school's rooftop. Again and again, I told them that what they were doing was wrong, and even fought them from time to time. Still, I was all alone, and they were many. Honestly, the girl wasn't that important to me. I just don't like bullying. I'm all in for a fair challenge, but when it's an entire pack of howling school children is hunting one girl, that's the opposite of a fair fight. The day of the locker room incident was our swimming day. One of our PE lessons each week is a compulsory swimming lesson. The locker rooms are situated as far from the pool as possible, which is stupid, which means that the students have to move through the whole school before dressing or undressing. The new girl always tried to be the first one to return to the locker room after lesson, but that day she didn't manage it, and the girls threw all of her clothes, including her underwear, to the boys' locker room. The boys were idiots. They immediately started trying on the clothes and even taking photos. Ugh, disgusting. So I decided it was time to right a wrong. And somehow I ended up being the one to blame. The boys yelled that the girls shouldn't enter their locker room. The girls told me that I should feel ashamed to even think about entering some place like that. Isn't that funny? They were perfectly okay stealing somebody's belongings, yet it was I who must have felt ashamed. So at the end of the day, that's how I earned a visit to a therapist. The school's therapist told me that I was all wrong. She told me that I should feel more emotions and that I made a lot of mistakes. Well, I never agreed to that nonsense. Why should I ever feel shame? After all, it wasn't me who did those things. I sincerely believe that bad things are stealing, bullying, and cheating, and I've never done that. Well, yes, granted, I do a lot of weird stuff, but nothing that bad. For example, once I ended up singing songs while standing in a garbage can. You see, there was a bet which I had lost, perfectly reasonable, and so I had to stand singing in that can for a certain amount of time. Weird, yes, but not shameful. And besides that, there was another story that seemed unusual to the therapist. Though I'm pretty sure I did everything right that time, too. Even my parents agree. It all started when our PE teacher got real sloppy. There's a small, shallow lake near our school. Honestly, it's more like a glorified pond. You can't drown there even if you really wanted to. And in the winter, the lake freezes over, and sometimes we're even allowed to skate there. If our PE teacher allows us to do so, that is. That year was pretty warm, and the lake didn't actually manage to freeze over properly. When all of us rushed into the ice, it immediately broke. The majority of the kids managed to get away in time, yet some of us got soaking wet, me included. They immediately called the ambulance and the EMSs got us out of the lake. No one was afraid that we'd drown, of course, but it was really cold outside, and those of us who got wet might have fallen ill. Most of my classmates got pretty sick. Some got a simple cold, others had bronchitis, and one even got pneumonia. I was the only one who remained perfectly healthy due to paying attention in health class. Our teacher told us that in such cases, a person who got wet should immediately get rid of wet clothes, rub him or herself, and wrap his or herself in a warm blanket. The medics gave us the blankets, and I did the rubbing myself. It never crossed my mind that by doing so, I would appear nude in front of strangers. At that moment, I only cared about saving my health, but the adults deemed my action as horribly immoral. Apparently, a girl should be really, really shy and never undress in front of strangers, even when her life is at stake. No, sorry, I don't think so. I've never understood that logic. It's idiotic. Though I've never cared enough to argue that point with those adults. Let them think like the cavemen that they are for all I care. It's not my job to change their minds. Apparently, they decided that something was obviously wrong with my psyche and told my mom a lot of horrible things about me. Well, whatever. I still don't think that I was wrong or anything. Now my health card says that I'm a psychopath, albeit in a mild form. The medics think that I'm physically unable to feel not only shame, but also sympathy and many other things. As for me, I think they're just coddling themselves by diagnosing me this way. They don't like that someone doesn't value what they do and dare challenge them on it.
Hi all, I'm Mary, Virginia's friend. Well, she thinks that I'm her friend anyway. Unfortunately, I don't really have much of a choice. Earlier, I really didn't know what a sociopath looked like. I always imagined them as characters from horror movies as asylum patients, emotionless creatures, more robots than humans, doing good and bad things with the same frozen smile on their lips. Well, that was so very wrong. You'd never notice a sociopath in a crowd unless you know a person to be one. They are excellent at pretending to be normal humans and always have some peerless logical excuse to any of their weird actions. I know that because I've known Virginia for a very long time. We became acquainted in the preparatory class. She just came straight to me, introduced herself, and told me that she's going to be my friend. I just carelessly agreed to that and asked her to sit down and don't interrupt the teacher. Oh, a grave mistake on my part. Well, at first, I just thought that Virginia was a fearless and really cool girl. She was never afraid of boys and dogs, was always ready to protect both of us, and once even drove off an adult guy who was trying to lure us into the woods. When I was just a kid, I really enjoyed being under her protection. But with age, I realized that Virginia wasn't just brave. Often her decisions seemed just straight up crazy. Small kids shouldn't do such things. When my friend was just an 8-year-old girl, she once saw some homeless men pick up someone's wallet. My friend just ran straight up to them and wrestled the wallet out of their hands. You see that there was no one else on the street, just the two of us and those men. Her decision was really dangerous. Virginia was always prone to impossibly reckless actions. She could easily enter the boys' locker room, get naked in front of a bunch of strangers, or tell the teacher in public that he smelled bad. And besides, she was always able to justify her actions using her insane troll logic. I felt in danger just being near her, but still was too afraid to run away or disobey her. Eventually, I told Virginia that we shouldn't be friends anymore. I told her that I was unable to be her friend. I too was shocked, horrified, and afraid to participate in her endless escapades. I just wanted a normal life with normal acquaintances, not a roller coaster of a friendship. You know how she reacted to that? She didn't. It was as if she never actually heard my words at all. Again and again, she dragged me into her brainless adventures, and again I participated in those escapades out of sheer fear. Well, yeah, I was afraid of leaving her. Since then, I tried dumping our friendship many times. Yet Virginia was always able to find me, drag me out of my hideout, and pull me into another horrible adventure. I wanted nothing of that. She intervened into fights between strangers, went to someone else's yard just to play with their cute dog, and of course, took part in various crazy bets. She was just plain nuts. Still, worst thing is that everybody considered me to be as crazy as Virginia. After all, I was known as her best friend. Therefore, people concluded that I was as crazy and insane as her. I never wanted such a reputation, that's for sure. Well, unfortunately, I'd never be able to make myself a new name as long as I hang out with Virginia. Well, soon, that horrible friendship will finally be over. My parents and I are moving into another city. I'd be transferred to a new school where no one knows about Virginia and her mad ideas. Thank God.
Hi, my name's Kate. Okay, do me a favor for just a sec. Imagine that you're stuck in the school closet with the most handsome boy in your school. And on top of that, he wasn't even invited. Honestly, you were the first one to get there. What would you do or even think in such a situation? When I was hiding in that closet, I couldn't even imagine that someone would appear there too. And of course, I did not expect Dan, of all people, to join me in there. Dan, he's a total dreamboat. All the girls in our school thought so too, even the seniors. And he sneaked in the closet just to see me. He even closed the door, just like in those cheesy soap operas that my mom likes. So, I bet you're wondering how I even wound up there in that closet. Oh, well, it's pretty obvious. I was spying, that's how. I had a feeling that two girls from my class were plotting something, and I decided to eavesdrop on them. My friends said that I was absurd and left me alone on the mission. But that's their problems. Such frivolities could not stop me. Anyway, I decided to sneak into the closet, which was connected to the dressing room, where those two girls liked to talk. Truth be told, I was not really hiding and had no purpose to do so. Nearly anyone could see me in there. So, when Dan decided to join me, I just knew that he was completely aware of where I was hiding. Certainly, I thought that he was doing it on purpose, just for me. I couldn't be happier when he found out that the door was locked. Meanwhile, Dan was looking quite mysterious, licking his lips all the time and flirting with me. I have no experience around boys, honestly. I knew how to hit back, but I was completely unaware of how to be close to someone in a romantic way. But I was sure that my sexy glance, which, I totally practiced in front of the mirror super hard, would be on point. I tried to flirt in the best way possible. And what would you do in my shoes? Like, seriously. I was pretty confident in my charm. I was smiling and joking, and not worse than any experienced comedian, mind you. Dropping a hint that Dan could kiss me right then at that moment. At first, he was just having fun, to be honest. I could totally see that in his face. But then he started making eyes at me so strongly. He even touched my hand. But we didn't have a chance to have a little, heart-to-heart. The school quartermaster came and was, super angry. The old goat kept swearing and picking the lock, which was totally out of order. But I was sure, I just knew that from this very moment, me and Dan would be together, just like Romeo and Juliet or like Edward and Bella, dreaming about all these romantic things. I went home. I even forgot all about those girls I initially planned to eavesdrop on. I discussed the future of me and Dan with my friends. Well, who could expect anything else? I even gave names to our children, a boy and a girl, naturally. Although my friends told me that the whole situation was quite weird, especially because Dan was, officially dating some senior girl. But she was totally not a good match for him. Not only was she way too old for him, about 2 years older, she looked so plain. Even nerds wouldn't end up interested in her, to say nothing of Dan. I tried to convince my friends that Dan just realized that I was the love of his life. They seemed convinced. But my happiness didn't last for too long. It disappeared the very next moment I saw Dan kissing that dang senior girl. I rushed to them and tried to grab my happiness from her tenacious, miserable hands. Dan told me to get lost in front of the whole school. He said that I was an idiot, and it would be so foolish of me to think that after our closet affair there could be something between us, anything between us. He continued talking, but I barely heard anything after that. Everyone was laughing, and I felt so embarrassed. I thought that everything was serious between us. How could he be so mean to me? Dan made a fool of me in front of everybody, laughed in my face. Then he made fun of me in class. He was joking, making faces, trying to show how I was flirting with him. Why would he do something like that? Why didn't he tell me right away that it was a mistake? I lost all my faith in boys right then and there, and now I'm afraid to ever speak to someone again. How can I possibly forget Dan, what with his flirting and his winking? I'm afraid that all the boys are just like him and just want to make fun of me. Besides, his friends already tried to do the same thing, but I was aware of their cruel intentions and wouldn't give them a chance. Now I'm convinced that miracles don't happen. Listen up, girls. If the hottest guy in your school is flirting with you, there's a very strong possibility that he just wants to make fun of you, and it doesn't mean anything serious for him. And yeah, I never found out what my classmates were plotting. Ugh, it's just so frustrating. Absolutely nothing worked out for me. Ugh! And it's all Dan's fault. He ruined everything.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dan, and as you've probably already guessed, I want to share my story with you. Also, I want to point out that everyone should thoroughly think over all their actions and words. Well, everything was cut and dry. I didn't want to chase this girl, Kate, or even talk to her by any means. I had my own business in that closet and didn't know that it was already occupied. We're going to have a test that week. I had huge issues with math, so my report card could be full of low grades. My future was at stake, and also my parents promised me some gifts for good grades, so I just did what I should have done. Seniors gave me a good hint, a combination for the teacher's lockbox with the tests. So I wanted to hide and wait for her to leave the classroom and then take what I wanted. Or I could just make a photo. The best place for my mission was that closet. You've already guessed that my actions had nothing to do with some crazy girl, especially with that girl. Well, for starters, I have a girlfriend. She's wonderful, and I love her, trust me. Another thing is that, to be honest, I think Kate is a little bit weird, as well as her friends. I don't know why they behave so crazy sometimes, but all my classmates can see that. Those girls make up some bizarre stuff all the time. She eavesdrops and then rumors, making stuff up to hold the interest. Nobody would like that, so she's not very popular in our school. And what's the point of being friends with such a girl who will immediately tell everyone some dirty things about you? Or she will make them up if she won't find anything scandalous enough. Even nerds and losers don't want to be with her. And then we got stuck in that dang closet with the broken lock on the door. Seriously, it was the worst possible time for the lock to jam. And all that was so stupid. I didn't even think about other so-called residents of that closet, just rushed in and closed the door. I didn't know that it could be locked that way, so I was very nervous and leaned on the door rather desperately. The moment was really stupid. I'm trying to find the doorknob, and Kate, I guess she was trying to flirt with me, but it didn't look good. I felt like in the airport, being inspected by security. Nothing pleasant and no escape. I thought it was a good idea to play along and then laugh with friends at the situation. I even didn't try to flirt. I was saving my hands and feet from her aggressive flings. I don't know why Kate thought that her actions looked cool. She was just tiptoeing all the time and even managed to step on my feet. Her imagination worked quite well to fill in everything that was missing. She was sure that I was actively flirting with her. I nervously waited for the locksmith to come, afraid of the very real possibility of ending up blown to pieces. Fortunately, I was saved pretty soon. I'm glad that school authorities care about children who got stuck in closets. So after a horrendous 15 minutes, which seemed like an eternity for me, I was free. I'm sure that Kate also felt like an eternity, yet in a different way. I didn't hear what she has told her friends. To be honest, I just got away as fast as possible. Well, It was more like a tactical retreat than a coward escape. A very fast tactical retreat, to be more precise. I didn't have the possibility to find answers for the test as well. The half of the school was there to see what happened. The next day there was such a show. I planned to stare at her during class, maybe wink or tell something ambiguous for her to get mad, but she went nuts without my help. Oh, you should have seen how she ambushed me. I swear, for the moment I had a feeling that I was an unfaithful husband who cheated on his old wife. But then I got over that and turned the game around, making a fool of her. Don't think bad of me. I'm not some kind of sadist, and I don't usually bully girls like that. Usually. But Kate and her friends were a great pain for the whole school. They were not just gossiping, they made everyone believe their shameless rumors. But fortunately, they stopped after that episode. I'm glad that everybody saw that. I take it as my personal vendetta. From that time, the only thing which Kate got was laughter. She could say everything she wanted, cry in the washroom, or look all disapprovingly. Anyway, we were glad that nobody buys our stories again. The closet door was fixed. Later we were hiding there with my love, and it turned out to be far more interesting than that story with Kate.
Hi, I'm Beverly, and my parents don't believe me. I am 100% sure that someone was watching me for several months straight, so I asked them for help. I cried, I was desperate, yet my parents never believed me. One night, I woke up because someone was heavily breathing in the darkness of my room, which honestly wouldn't have been too weird if we owned a dog or something, but we didn't have a single pet. Mom and Dad never let me have pets. Cats and dogs were always out of the question, yet they wouldn't even allow me to have a pet rat. Well, anyway, somehow my parents were 100% sure that an animal of any sort would turn my room into a pig pen. They honestly just don't trust me. Even still, I always dreamed of having a dog. I was going to turn 13 at the time, so half asleep, I assumed that Mom and Dad were sneaking in to surprise me with one. And so, dreaming of that, I went back to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I immediately started looking all around the house for my new fluff ball. Of course, I found nothing. I asked my mom about the animal, but my mom thought that I was making fun of her and reprimanded me. I told her what I had heard in the night about the breathing. But instead of helping, she left me without a dessert that night at dinner, so that I could be a little more in touch with reality. Yeah, honestly, she said that. Well, the next evening, in bed, I heard heavy breathing once again. Since then, I've heard that horrible sound every night. At first, I told myself that it must have been a very big stray dog outside of my window, but it didn't take long before I realized that only humans could make those sounds. Well, a little background on me. I was widely known for having a good imagination. Teachers at school said that I would become a great writer, and my English teacher said that he really enjoyed reading my essays. And some of those essays even got published in the school paper. Besides, I also enjoyed daydreaming. It kind of goes with the territory. So you can say that my parents' disbelief was kind of justified. At least for a little while, but not for that long. Anyway, Mom and Dad never liked my fantasies, nor my tendency to just gaze off randomly. Apparently, they even considered me a little bit crazy. According to Mom and Dad, the only worthwhile lifestyle is living in the moment. But I wasn't crazy or anything. I was always able to differentiate between fantasies and the life I knew. I knew perfectly well that all the ghosts and the fairies in my stories weren't real. And of course, I would have never made up something as scary as stories about someone walking around my room in the night. Soon, I was all too sure that somebody had invaded my room at night, and that it was most definitely an adult man, because the stranger had a very long stride and a heavy footstep, just like my dad or my uncle. And besides, sometimes the stranger let out an indistinct whisper or even coughed a little bit. I spent night after night under my blanket in fear, absolutely mortified. And I'm a light sleeper, so those sounds always woke me up. And yet I never grew bold enough to open my eyes. I was too afraid to look at the stranger, and at the time, I was already sure that that night guest wasn't my dad. I was so sure because I heard my dad snoring from the other room. Morning after morning, I came running to my mom and dad and told them about the stranger, about the terrifying noises. I told them that some creep was totally watching me in my sleep and that I was horribly afraid. Yet my dad only told me not to watch TV before bedtime, and my mom once even said that if I didn't stop with those stories, they would be forced to bring me to a very special doctor. At that, well, that threat was enough for me to stop complaining. My mom looked very angry when she spoke about that doctor, so I realized that I'd get no help from her. Since then, I couldn't sleep at all, and I even stole a hammer from Dad's garage and I put it under my pillow to feel just a little bit more safe. Yet soon, everything suddenly got better. We kind of just moved to a new house out of the blue. Mom and Dad told me that they managed to discover some poisonous substance in the walls of our old home and had to move immediately. Still, it was all quite strange. When I came home from school one day, they just told me that we were moving, and we did that in one day. Personally, I actually felt pretty great about that decision. Of course, I couldn't care less about that poisonous substance of any sort. My new bedroom was safe. There was no stranger to come into my room at night, no more heavy breathing, no more fear. Switching schools and leaving lots of my stuff and friends behind was a small price to pay. Well, I'm still mad at my mom. Honestly, through it all, Mom and Dad never believed me. I told them so many times about that creep, that stranger in our home, yet they moved only when someone told them about some poison in the walls. Apparently, they never cared about me or what I had to say at all. And that, honestly, just hurts.
Hi, I'm Karen, Beverly's mom. Recently, my husband and I almost made the gravest mistake in our lives. We never took our daughter's words seriously, and that almost ended up in tragedy. We've lost our daughter's trust. Well, yeah, Beverly is physically okay, but as of late, she turned inward and doesn't confide in us anymore. You see, Beverly was always a dreamy kid. She used to make up various stories since she was a little girl and was always ready to tell a tale or two. We treated her stories condescendingly, because those were just fairy tales. And sooner or later, she still had to abandon those when she grew up. Yet when a person matures, he or she must become much more reasonable and responsible. And Beverly had problems with that. That's why we didn't take our daughter's last tale seriously. She told us many times about some stranger who came to her room in the night and just stood there whispering and coughing. Yet, we always thought that it was just another one of Beverly's tales. Nothing more. That was our greatest mistake. We instantly dismissed our girl's words. Who could believe that tale about the stranger? We had a lot of things to do. We couldn't be bothered with such nonsense. Yet later it turned out that she was true. My husband and I realized when something was amiss, when strange things began to happen to us as well. Nothing exceptional or paranormal, nothing weird of course, just some little accidents that had no explanation whatsoever. For example, the food started inexplicably disappearing from the fridge. You must realize I was used to making plenty of food at once, so as not to be bothered with cooking during the work week. Usually, I cooked whole tubs of potato salad, grilled dozens of steaks at once, or boiled a lot of corn, enough for several days or so. And suddenly, all that food began to disappear in a much more rapid pace than before. At first, I thought that my husband started snacking in the middle of the night. Then I suspected Beverly. She's a teenager after all. Her growing body needs a lot of food. I even checked on them once or twice in the middle of the night. Yet no members of our household were awake at night, and the food kept disappearing. Sometimes, several of my purchases disappeared before I even had a chance to open them. I bought those things. Receipts don't lie. I remember bringing them home, yet they were nowhere to be found. And both my husband and Beverly were out of the question. My beloved worked till late at night, and Beverly stayed at school. There was no one else at home but me. And the bizarre incidents at home weren't limited to food. I regularly noticed that various small things were often found out of place. Keys dropped in the middle of the carpet, slippers laying in the opposite ends of the room, such sort of things. Speaking about bizarre incidents, my husband noticed a fair share of those too. He was sure that someone used his razor, and someone also took several of his old pants and shirts. Those old clothes were kept in my husband's closets, but one day he realized that the shelf went empty. Everything came to an end when I returned from the mall in the winter. I saw an open window on our first floor, the one that I definitely closed because of the winter chill, and I called the police. The officers searched the house and made a terrible discovery. It turned out that our attic was a lair of a homeless man, and that man wasn't just an ordinary hobo. He was an escaped convict. Later, the police discovered that the convict had spent half a year in the attic. He ate our food, wore my husband's clothes, and used his razor. Furthermore, it turned out that the hobo got the attic through our daughter's room. We immediately realized that Beverly was right all along. She never lied to us. Her story about the stranger wasn't a mere fantasy. All that time, Beverly's life was in very real danger, and we just kept dismissing her words as daydreaming. Suffice to say, we moved the very same day. We spent all our savings on a new home and asked the police to check it beforehand, just to be sure. Of course, we never told Beverly about the convict. We didn't want to bring her any more harm. Since then, I can't calm down. I'm afraid of the possibility of some other creep sneaking into our house. By a lucky chance, that convict didn't harm our daughter. But what if such a horror happened again? I shall do everything in my power to prevent that. Hello there, I'm Margaret. But this story is not about me. It's about my good friend Sarah, who's also my neighbor. She seemed to be missing for some time, and recently, I finally found out where she was. It appeared that her parents locked her in their own house, and they made her live in terrible conditions. I saw through binoculars that she was sleeping in some awful box. Can you imagine that a girl is spending the whole night in a box? I never would have thought that that could be true. We called the police several times, but her family was pretending that everything was okay. And Sarah was so afraid of her parents that she played along with them. Every time, the police would come back with nothing, and Sarah returns to her box. Then she's wandering around the house crying and texting on the internet that she's fine. It seems to me that fine is not the most appropriate word for living in a box. It's even weirder because Sarah has a suspicious and beautiful room, which is even bigger than mine. When we hung out, I used to come to her place all the time. So I know that for sure. That's the reason why I don't believe in those lies that her parents keep telling the police and social services. They say that Sarah has mental issues, and they even summoned some psychologists for her. It's strange because we used to be friends from early childhood, and she was sane. She was completely normal. Yes, she'd never been a fan of communication with other children, although she hung out with one other girl and me. Sarah was an introvert as a child. But she was absolutely normal. I also didn't like it when her relatives came to our house, and my parents made me kiss their cheeks. It was awful, especially when I was forced to kiss my old granny. We were friends with Sarah. We used to laugh, hang out, and go to school together. She was active during classes, and she loved studying. I didn't see anything weird in her behavior. She was an ordinary girl who even attended different after-school activities like volleyball or glee club. Sarah was a funny and interesting girl. There was one unpleasant moment when someone attacked her. I don't know any specific details, but it was rather serious because our parents didn't allow us to leave the house for a month after that. The criminal was not found, but I knew that Sarah felt well. It was just a street robbery, which happens often here. Although usually, the victims are adults. I don't believe that one robbery could turn a girl who's so cool into a psycho. It's impossible. But her parents locked Sarah in the house and didn't let her out. She even started homeschooling because of that. After some time, I saw that box in her room. I often observed Sarah getting inside and sitting there till morning or even longer. She was crying and sleeping in there. It seems that her parents forbade Sarah to use her bed for that. Of course, I told my parents about it, and they called the police right away. But my friend remained imprisoned. No matter what we did, she still is. Although we're chatting on the internet once in a while, and she says everything is fine. But I don't believe her. I don't know what can be done about all that. We tried everything except abduction because it was kind of absurd. But now it seems like a good idea for me. We should just kidnap Sarah and take her as far as possible from her crazy parents. Surely we can't do that because of the law. But I want to save her so much.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I live in a box. The box is so cozy and useful. It stands in our house and doesn't bother anyone. But other people don't believe me. Yeah, you got it right. I really live in a big refrigerator box. I know, it sounds creepy, but it's actually really nice. Still, it is true, and I wouldn't want to lie to you. But nothing terrible goes on in our house. Although our neighbors don't think so. The box is situated on the second floor in my absolutely normal bedroom. It's just an ordinary room with a bed, some toys, a desk, and other stuff that kids usually have. Often I sleep in my bed. I do my homework at the desk, I play video games, and sometimes I even talk to other people. I know, shocking. But I do rarely leave the house. I've stayed home as much as possible over the last 3 years. My parents would have been very happy if it was the other way around. They spend a lot of money on doctors and therapists, but still, nothing helps. The rumor about my imprisonment doesn't do a lot of good either. To be honest, I really do have some issues. I get panic attacks, you see. They are creepy and sudden, and I'm so desperate during them that it feels like I could just die. I don't know who investigated these issues or what they found, but as a person who often experiences them, I'm pretty sure that my heart stops when I have a panic attack. And because of them, I can't talk to anyone. I can't even come out of my room because it causes the next attack. Although I do chat with people online, so it's not all bad. But to be honest, I miss meeting with my friends a lot. I have always been a loner. It was easier for me to just be alone. Then that incident with the robbery happened. I just went out shopping, and I didn't have a care in the world. I wasn't expecting to get mugged. I was already 13, and the store wasn't far from the house. What could possibly go wrong? It was a rather strange decision for that man to steal from a kid who only has ice cream instead of choosing a wealthy grown-up. Still, he attacked me. He took my bag and pushed me so hard that I fell on the ground and lost consciousness. I was lying there for 2 hours. Nobody helped a little unconscious girl lying on the ground for 2 hours. That's why I'm so angry about all these caring people who say they're just trying to help me. Because at the time when I was lying there, when I needed them, everybody just walked by. So why should they care now? It was my mom who found me. She was worried about me because usually I never go out for so long. At first she thought that maybe I just met my friend. We were chit-chatting around the corner. But figured it might be better to check in, and it's a good thing she did, because she found me lying unconscious on the ground. Luckily, nothing terrible happened to me. I did get several bruises and a nasty bump on my head, but that's it. Even laying on the ground for 2 hours straight didn't affect my health in any way. I didn't even catch a cold. Physically, I felt completely fine, but my mental health was really damaged. I didn't leave the house from that time, knowing that something like that could repeat itself. Also, I started to lose consciousness often and have panic attacks. The feeling of safety within my house helped me to calm down a little bit, although I knew it still wasn't safe enough. My panic attacks didn't go away and eventually got worse. Then a box appeared. Once I was so desperate that I just got into it to feel safer, and it helped me. Slowly, my anxiety faded. I calmed down and I fell asleep in the box. My father was going to throw the box in the garage until he found me inside. I asked my parents to leave it, please, and if I could use it. They agreed, but found another one which was bigger and tighter. A refrigerator box fit the best and had enough free space. I put some blankets and some chocolate and even a bottle of water inside. Now I have a place where I can go through all my stressful moments. It's far less expensive than a therapist and honestly helps me better. Although our neighbors think that they can meddle in my life, I told them 1,000,000 times that I'm fine and my parents don't torture me, but of course they don't lock me in or take food from me. I live in this box because I have mental issues. Some people are hiding in their wardrobe or under their beds, and I choose a box. Is that such a big deal? As a matter of fact, all those police calls made my life even harder. My parents were trying to prove that I was ill and that I was having panic attacks all the time, but still, the police were obliged to come and check that everything was fine in case there was a child being tortured by their parents. Dear neighbors, Please, just go burn in it. I can't say that. So, dear neighbors, please don't meddle in my life. Vigilance is a good thing, sure, but it's a little late for that, don't you think? Why didn't you prove your civic awareness earlier? Now I have to help myself in my own way because you refuse to. And please stay as far away from my house as possible. I should say that help is a good thing if only one really needs it. As for me, it's not that hard to identify the real victim of domestic violence. Hi everyone, my name is Helen, and I found myself in the worst possible situation ever, and it's my fault. I can't even blame anyone for this. My parents, neighbors, and all of our relatives think that I'm perfect. They see me as an ideal child who's good at everything. I have great grades, is perfectly well behaved, and I even read at an extremely high grade level. I heard my neighbor sobbing over her daughter who ran away from home at the age of 16. That's the same age as me, and honestly, I rarely even go out for walks anymore. Certainly, such a perfect girl like me wouldn't have any issues at school, right? That's why my report card shines with straight A's and sings with praises from all of my teachers. It's the only way things could be, right? Well, every morning I wake up, have my breakfast, help my mother to clean the table, and run to school. The bus station is situated about 2 blocks from my house, so I have to leave 10 minutes early so that the bus driver doesn't have to wait up for me. Every day, my father offers me a ride, but I always say no because I know that he could be late for work. Everybody envies my parents. I'm a role model for all the other children. That's why they treat me like a disdainful and arrogant queen of our school. Anyway, they all dream about having me as their friend, or at least dream about cheating off of my papers. But my whole life is a lie, or at least the last year of it is. The truth is that I'm a loser. An idiot who can't do anything useful or even honestly confess to this. And what's worse, and ultimately terrible, is that any lie sooner or later will get exposed, and I can't keep up this deception for much longer. At the beginning of this year, several unpleasant events happened all at once. Everything began after my classmates framed me in the worst possible way. The teacher was going to give us a test just after the vacation in order to check whether we still remembered anything. It was the boys who came up with the idea to steal the correct answers instead of actually revising and studying our work. Our science teacher always kept the papers with the correct answers in his desk, so it didn't seem very difficult to steal them. All we needed to do was stay in the room after the class and take a photo of the answers. Seemed to be as easy as pie. The only real problem was that the teacher locked the room between classes. You see, he had some expensive stuff in the cabinet and didn't want the curious students sneaking around. But we all put our heads together and figured out that there were some places under certain desks where the teacher wouldn't be able to see us. All we needed was a couple of people to stay behind, hidden. One of the short kids in our class and myself volunteered for that specific role. The other kids were standing behind the door and watching. The first part of the plan went just right. We hid, waited for the teacher to lock the room, and took a photo. But suddenly, the teacher came bursting back in the room. He immediately rushed to his cabinet with those expensive things I mentioned before. We stood aside quietly, pretending to be lost, but it turns out that one of the reagents was missing. When the teacher was looking through our bags, he found the phone with a photo of the test answers. A huge scandal broke out at school. The school's administration didn't get any dirt on my short partner in crime, so they blamed me for the theft. All my classmates framed me, saying that they didn't see anything and that it was all my own idea. The incident lapsed because there was no evidence. There couldn't have been any, as I didn't take anything, but still they expelled me after the incident. Then I made another huge mistake. I didn't tell my parents anything. They thought that I was still attending school as I usually do, spending time there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., preparing for my exams and whatnot, but obviously I wasn't. I spent my time in the library or cafes. Sometimes I would just wander the streets where nobody would recognize me. I knew that I should tell the truth, but every time I went to tell them, I would freeze up, and I just ended up spouting stories about what happened in school that day, which were obviously lies. According to these stories, I became the best student and the pride of the entire school. I also forged teacher signatures and made a perfect report card with the best grades. My drawing skills helped me a lot there. My parents were so proud and didn't notice that anything was off. They even started bragging about my progress in front of everyone, and of course, I found myself in a stalemate. I couldn't just stand up and say, "Oh, dear parents and other relatives, I have been lying to you for several months straight. I was actually expelled a long time ago." Isn't that a funny story? Oh, I can just see it now. My mother would be like, "Oh dear, we're so proud that you embarrassed us in front of everyone." No. I could not do that. But as I said, my lie is going to expire soon, because the end of the school year is drawing nearer. This is the last high school year, and after that, I should choose what I want to do next. I can continue my school education, or I can go straight to college. As you've already guessed, I wouldn't have any final exams, and after almost a year, my parents will find out everything. I don't know what to do. Yes, I know. I wouldn't have gone through all of this if I was just honest with my parents from the beginning, but I've dug a hole too deep to get back out with my lies. It's too late for that now. My parents will kill me. Or at least they will kick me out of the house because of my uselessness and shame. Please, give me some advice in the comments. What should I do? What would you do? I would really appreciate any ideas.
Hello there, I'm Kate, the mother of this little liar. And yes, parents are not that stupid as their children think. Usually the school's management sends somebody to inform the parents about the exclusion, or they at least send it in the mail, not because of control or something like that, but because the parents should sign the papers. The papers were sent by mail with a delay of about a month after the exclusion. I don't know the exact reason for the delay. Maybe they were too busy. The fact is that we got the message about the exclusion of our daughter from the principal. It's rather interesting that Helen didn't tell us about that. She allegedly kept attending her school, talked about school affairs, and behaved as usual. Imagine our surprise when we got the letter. Unfortunately, nothing could be fixed at that moment. We could apply to some other schools, or try to settle things in this one. Still, the whole month was already missed without a valid reason. Besides, no school will take Helen just a month after the beginning of the school year, so we decided to wait and see what would happen. I know that it was not appropriate, but what could we do? To be honest, we expected Helen to tell the truth and work on her own or find a job. Instead, she preferred to have fun and lie. It was so hard to smile in her face and remain silent. Our own daughter was lying to us with no shame, and it felt awful. Also, those report cards. That was an actual pedagogical failure that went too far. We hoped that at least the unearned adulation would work, and she would tell the truth. But Helen kept lying and pretending that everything was fine. She lied and lied and lied. One lie went after another, and every next one was far more complicated and well considered. After all, I was confused by her made-up stories. We don't know where Helen got those storytelling skills. She was quite good at it. She has never mixed up the dates and the facts. I would be really impressed if it wasn't our daughter who really fooled us. Soon the school year will come to an end, and the exams will begin. My husband and I started to make bets on how it all comes out. Will Helen tell the truth, or maybe she will keep lying? I bet she will definitely make up something new, and my husband tries to be more optimistic. As a matter of fact, we're not going to continue this nonsense. As soon as the exams will end, we'll tell her everything. We've already excluded her opportunities to lie to us again, and we created a punishment for her, the one that she will remember for a long time. It will teach her that studying is the most important thing for a teenager. Don't be afraid, we're not going to do anything awful, but we definitely should teach her a good lesson. My husband found in the papers the most difficult and dirty work for her. She will clean the toilets in cafes the whole summer to refund us all the lunch money she spent. We hope that hard work will help to get her head on straight. And if not, she can always continue to clean the toilets, though it's the most underpaid job without any career opportunities.
Hi, I'm Helga.
I witnessed things that are hard to believe, and you can decide whether they were the horrible truth or a collective hallucination. That Halloween, we decided to celebrate with a bang. Several days ago, my twin brother and I became 16, so we're almost adults. We still couldn't do a lot of things, but we were not children anymore. That's why we wanted to have a very special holiday. We were considered being too old for trick-or-treating. The party seemed to be the best decision, but we didn't want the boring one in the backyard of one of our friends' houses. We wanted something really special, something catchy that will prove to everyone how cool we are. One of our mutual friends found out an exciting urban legend about an abandoned factory. The Dole factory was standing for a long time on the outskirts of our city, on the hill. It terrified all the kids with its broken windows and clanging of the rebar. But with that legend, the place suddenly became so amusing. Everything was rather trivial. The legend tells about people who disappeared inside that stone monstrosity. And that was 100% true. Even newspapers wrote about it, though nobody believed that disappearances were mystical in any way. The old building contained a lot of demolition waste, and the basement was bigger than the main construction. There was talk that it was 5 levels deep, so if one gets inside, there wouldn't be many chances to come back. One false move and nobody will find you. The legend, an ordinary urban myth, promised those who dare the night of terrors, like the lost people, were only the tip of the monster. The monster itself is far deeper inside, and it devours the soul of every person who steps inside the factory. It was the fault of a higher power that lures the innocent there. Also, there were the ghosts of the victims, which were roaming around wailing and begging to let them free. You may think the factory was built on an Indian burial ground, but actually, it was situated at a place where a terrible legend happened a long time ago. There was a typical family with a lot of kids. There were about 10 kids of different ages. One day, something mysterious and unexplainable happened with all of them. They were found all over the hill in a horrible condition. The picture was awful, one which kids usually shouldn't see. The murderer was not found. Nobody wanted to live in such a house, so it was destroyed. Then people built the factory. Everything was just fine. But then the creature, which has made all that with the children once, came back. There were a lot of accidents and injuries, so the factory was closed. And now the monster has to reap his prey out of the ones entering into his territory. To be honest, all this sounds like nonsense. I know for sure the factory was closed due to financial issues. My father used to work there when he was young, and he used to tell stories about the factory routine. That sounded rather cool, so we decided, why not? That Halloween night, we made a great bonfire on the hill. Girls found some music equipment and put several lanterns on the nearest trees. The party got started. Everyone was dressed up in a costume. We danced to loud music and had fun. John picked up some Blondie and hung out with his buddies as he always does. And I stayed with my friends to chit-chat about life and boys. Well, our age was perfect to start seeing someone. And all our boys were school kings, dreamboats, or Mark's baseball friends. We were joyfully hanging out, and the scary factory behind our backs was successfully forgotten, though the factory didn't forget about us. At that moment, I stepped away from the party. The crowd had fun, and I wanted to catch my breath. Suddenly, John appeared. At first, we were just standing there, watching the bonfire from afar. There weren't any thoughts that something was wrong, I promise. We could stand silently and stare somewhere for hours. Usually we supported each other in such a way. Then John took my hand, and without a single word, led me far away from the fire. It was my brother, so I followed him without question. I thought he just wanted to talk in secret, or asked for advice. Our girls drooled over him. I knew that. So you can understand why I didn't resist him until it became completely dark and empty around. Only then I started to suspect something. Yeah, I knew that John was stupid enough to take me to the factory just for fun, but it wasn't the point at the moment. John behaved rather weird. He's my twin, so I know him perfectly well. We have the same mimic, and our moves are similar. But at that moment, his moves were sharp. His face looked strange. I'm sure no one could notice that except for me. Even our parents wouldn't figure out the difference. My first thought was about the blondie. Maybe they had a fight? You know, nerves and all that. Or it was not the blondie. Maybe John quarreled with someone else. Or he didn't have any quarrels, but the boys kept walking away from the fire all the time. Anyway, there wasn't anything criminal or mysterious, but I already got really scared. Suddenly, John looked back and maybe it was the darkness, but I'm sure his face looked like a mask. It was fake, as if something under it didn't know how to express human emotions and could only copy them. I started to resist the creature in a very active way. I screamed, "What are you doing?" And he answered, "Shut up and go faster, idiot." Then he firmly grabbed my hand. I even had bruises. Finally, I understood it was not my brother. It could be anyone but him. I figured that out because it's not okay to swear in our family or hurt each other. How can we do such things if you feel the other's pain almost like your own? John, or the thing that pretended to be John, stopped playing nice and dragged me to the monster's maw, the hollow and the black door of the factory. I started to fight back, but the thing had inhuman strength. I tried to put my heels in the ground to slow down, but I just plowed a few yards of the ground and then lost my shoe. It almost pulled me inside when people near the fire heard my screams. Suddenly the bright lights appeared, and my friends came to my rescue. The boys attacked the thing which looked like my brother and tried to pull it from me. The thing sluggishly fought back and then just disappeared in the crowd. Nobody understood where it went. Certainly people started calling for John, and some even threatened him. I was not able to think straight to say that it wasn't my brother. At that moment, I was sure 100% that it was not him. The situation appeared to be far more serious than I imagined. John didn't answer any calls, and even my sad crying wasn't heard. No one had seen him since everything started. At some point, our searching was interrupted by something worse than my crazy brother. It's hard to tell now whether it was true or not, but all of a sudden we heard a horrifying screech. It sounded as if something scraped his claws across the steel, causing sparks. Then something flashed in the window of the empty factory. Something huge! The party was over. We ran away screaming in fear. We even forgot about the bonfire and about John. We went back home, hoping to find him there, but nobody has seen my twin brother since that Halloween party. The police were searching for him. All of us were interrogated. The police officers even searched the factory with the help of dogs. John disappeared, as if he's never existed. We've never celebrated Halloween after that. At first, we mourned for John, and then it was too scary. All of us had thoughts like, what if it happens again? The factory was demolished after several years. Now it's a wasteland there, which is slowly being covered in weeds. Till this time, even stray dogs try to avoid this place. I know it has no point, but I'm glad that horrible building is not there anymore. I don't know what has happened with John, and I still mourn him. The hope of at least finding out what was pretending to be my brother doesn't leave me.
Howdy, I'm Nancy, and recently I learned that you can't just trust people, any people at all. You see, even those who appear to like you can plot something sinister and laugh behind your back. My story started when I got invited to study at the most prestigious school in our city. That school doesn't usually take in students from outside. It caters to the rich and wealthy, and people there have to pay a fortune for their kids to be allowed to study. However, the teachers are professionals of the highest caliber. Besides, the school alumni are allowed to enter practically any state university without exams. And I was just a girl from a trailer park. I've studied in public schools all my life and was never considered a star pupil, despite being quite diligent. I just wasn't all that smart. Besides, my mom and I never had much money to begin with. Sometimes we barely had enough to buy groceries. I've got the very best mom in the whole world. She's just kinda unlucky in life, but she works a lot and she devotes all her strength to making my future brighter, even if just a little bit. So, when the officials from the super school hired her as a janitor, she considered herself blessed because Mom's new job was actually really good for my future. School employees were allowed to get their own kids enlisted in that school free of charge. That's how me, a janitor's daughter, came to study at the very best school in the whole state. It felt like a dream come true. At first, Mom and I were super happy. With such an education, I'd be able to enter any university. Marvelous. Of course, there already was one problem. I was quite afraid of my new classmates, you see. I was worried that they definitely hate me and immediately start bullying me for being a classless upstart or some such hogwash. Still, I was ready to endure anything for that bright future. It's a good thing that I went because it turned out I was wrong. I guess rich kids are no different than actual kids from poor families. Nobody bullied me, nobody hated me, they just kind of ignored me altogether at first. I wasn't really offended, though. Kids in any school do a lot of watching at first when they get a new classmate. Besides, I looked and honestly sounded so different from all of them. I've got old clothes, a funny voice, patched shoes, Mom's old bag, nothing nice and fancy. I clearly looked out of their league. But then a miracle happened. I had just gotten used to being an outcast and all, but those rich kids appeared to be actually kind of cool. Some of them started talking to me as an equal. First, it was the girls, and then the boys welcomed me into the fold. They helped me get comfortable at school. 2 of the girls actually tutored me, and my classmates even gave me free rides home. Though I didn't tell them my real address. I told them to drive to the house closest to the trailer park, but still, it was great. With time, more and more miracles happened. Those 2 girls I became really close friends with, and they even started gifting me their clothes. At first, I was embarrassed. I thought maybe they were mocking me. But they soon persuaded me that they didn't need these clothes anyway. The boots that didn't fit, the coats that weren't fancy enough, that sort of thing. They gave me jackets, boots, dresses, even several sets of the school uniform. Well, at first, I expected some sort of trick. Yet, they actually managed to convince me that they were sincere. You see, all those clothes and boots weren't actually new. Some of them were a bit shabby or blotchy. Rich fashionista girls considered them irreparable. But hey, for me it was an easy fix, and I was happy to wear it. The guys gave me some presents as well. Of course, they never gave me, like, clothes or beauty products or whatever. Instead, they clubbed together and bought me a high-end phone, a laptop for studies, and some other accessories like headphones and stuff. The girls taught me how to wear makeup, gave me an opportunity to try many various hairstyles, even invited me to a pajama party where the mother of one of the girls dyed my hair ash blonde and gave me a really cool new haircut. Later on, I found out that mom was actually a fashionable stylist who only worked with stars and was regularly employed in Hollywood. My life became glorious. I could have never imagined it to turn out that great. Of course, Mom warned me not to be too charmed by my new friends. But, how could I help it? Well, sooner or later, every fairy tale has to end. On this particular day, I came to school a bit earlier than usual. Mom and I normally do that because we come to school by bus, so I was usually the first kid to enter the classroom. Typically, I was there about a half hour before the start of the lesson. I often did that time to review work or go over homework or that sort of stuff. But that time, I decided to help Mom by watering the flowers. So when the girls came to class, I was busy watering the pots behind a closet, effectively hidden from their sight, so they didn't hear me when I heard them enter the classroom. And at first I wanted to greet them, but was stopped dead in my tracks when I heard what they were talking about. I heard my name come up. They didn't see me and thought that I was absent, and they were actually happy that the nightmare girl skipped school. They were calling me names and insulting me. I was so shocked that I couldn't even move, and they continued with their incoherent ramblings. It turned out that my so-called friends considered me a boogeyman, boogie woman, whatever, of the class. According to them, I was an ugly, clumsy, foul-looking monster of a girl, and even makeup and nice clothes made no difference. They were sure that I was the shame of the class. Turns out that they played the role of my friend so that I couldn't embarrass them anymore, and that they were purposefully working to keep me silent. I couldn't really listen to those cruel words anymore and ran away in tears. I cried in that closet for hours. I'm not too proud of that. And then Mom came and took me home. That very evening, I begged Mom to move me to another school. I never, ever return to that horrible super school. Even now, when I don't feel all that pain anymore, I still can't understand their reasons. I truly believed us to be friends, and they turned out to be nothing more than a group of malevolent assholes.
Hi all, I'm Barbara, the same rich beauty who, according to the cries of our janitor, ruined Nancy's life. Pfft, that Nancy. My parents always told me that the rich were rich and the poor were poor for a reason, and used to think that all men are equal. I thought so until I met Nancy. When Nancy got transferred to our class, all of us were shocked. You see, we were all somehow acquainted since our very childhood. All of the pupils in our school, from the first graders to the almost alumni. And she looked and smelled. And she looked and smelled as a literal alien to us. It totally isn't an exaggeration. She really was so weird. Makeup today is affordable even for the most poor. And if it isn't, then a sewing needle definitely is. Nancy's clothes were full of holes. She wore zero makeup. She clearly didn't have her head washed for weeks, and she smelled. Our class soon became the laughingstock of the whole school. Still, we tried our best to turn our nightmare girl into a normal-looking creature. I actually never liked her, but Mom always told me that real ladies shouldn't instantly make up their minds. They should weigh out all the pros and cons first. So we tried. Some of us thought that Nancy should have been at least smart if she was unkempt and ugly. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't the case. She studied diligently, yet she read no books and wasn't interested in any extra knowledge. She was a literal zero, a nobody, and an ugly one at that. The girls of our class, me included, decided to help the nightmare girl. We tried to teach her how to dress better, teach her style and makeup. We even gifted her with clothes and cosmetics of our own. Our parents encouraged our efforts. Yet my mom told me not to be too hopeful. Well, Mom was right. Our little nightmare never actually changed. She wore new clothes and new makeup, but somehow remained the same old nightmare, based, ugly, and stupid. All the school was laughing at us. So finally there came the moment when we stopped caring altogether. We gave up and made Nancy the clown everybody was calling her to be. Funny thing is, she was all for it. And we were surprised by that. She saw how we looked. She read all the fashion magazines. She listened to our advice for many months. And still, she was sure that jeans together with a skirt was an okay move, and that she would look good with blue lashes. Was that some exquisite stupidity? Was that some extremely bad taste? I don't know. And then the day came when she learned about everything. Her face looked horrific. We even thought that she was going to take her revenge at us. Well, she didn't, and that was the end of the story. The nightmare girl finally understood that she didn't belong here and moved to another school all on her own accord. And we were free to live a normal life once again. All in all, that's what a happy ending looks like in my book.
Hi people, I'm Mark. I'm 18 and 3 days ago I stopped believing in love altogether. There's no point to hold faith in high feelings when the girl for whom I was ready to give my life for turned out to be just an opportunistic monster. So here's how it started. I was born in a big but rather close-knit family. I've got mom, dad, 2 brothers, 3 sisters. There was also a multitude of aunts, uncles, cousins, and second cousins. Actually, we were more like a whole ancient clan than a modern family. I never really managed to make friends with my siblings. You see, I was a very large and strong child, but far from the smartest. So my brothers and sisters quickly learned to use my lack of wit in their favor. Besides, they've always been making new offensive nicknames for me, and I was too dumb to pay them back in kind. I have never been a favorite of my parents. Yet I wasn't an outcast as well, just another child among the many. Not too bright, not too good at school. I quickly learned to rely on my brawn instead of my brains. I really love sports and I've been working out since I was 5 or so. Whenever I was in a bad mood or something upset me, I went to the gym. An hour of kicking the punching bag, lifting weights and exercising usually made me feel so much better. Over time, I began to dabble in bodybuilding and fitness. I've been reading a lot on these subjects and always peppered our physical education teacher at school with questions. After all, I've got no brains to rely on and no natural grace to carry me through life. So I've started to think about a strongman career. Once during a quarrel, my dad told me that I'd always be dumb. In fact, he and Mom weren't even saving money for my future college. Dad was sure that'd be just a senseless waste of family resources. Still, I needed to earn a living somehow. And the only things I've been really good at were sports and bodybuilding. A strongman would never be left without a work. After all, funny thing is, I've never had problems with the love life due to my muscles. Of course, I didn't have enough brains to spam girls with original compliments, and I've got no creativity to write poems for them. Fortunately, all these shortcomings were offset by my strong biceps and a nice face. It turns out, girls really like men who can effortlessly pick them up and carry them around. Due to my passion for sports, I have always been a very strong guy. But despite that, I'm very kind, so I've got a lot of friends. I've always protected all those feeble and squishy guys from hooligans and bullies. Those bullies can't stand up to one who is able to smack them down with one slap. I had many buddies, but only one best friend, however, was one. Unlike me, he was a shabby guy, but a very smart one. He always thought of some schemes, was constantly devising new ways to make money, and every one of his plans usually worked out pretty well. I helped him when I had an opportunity to do so. I'm 2 years younger than him, but I have 10 times more strength, so he often turned to me for protection. Eventually, he learned a lot about sports from me. Unfortunately, the knowledge did not help him. My friend just wasn't fit for sports. Yet thanks to my lessons, the friend managed to open his own fitness club when he himself was only 18. Moreover, he suggested me to work with him as a coach, and I happily agreed. The parental home was quite crowded, and I'd anyway needed some money to move out on my own in time. Besides, I've been dating a girl I've considered the best in the whole world, and I really wanted to please her with something. I first met Judy when we were 15 years old. She was just transferred to my class, and the local bullies decided to show the newcomer who was the coolest guy around. Unlucky for them, I was just passing by to the gym. After one menacing smile of mine, the bullies quickly excused themselves and ran away at full speed. She thanked me. I offered to escort her home, and that was the moment I fell in love with her. Of course, she wasn't the first girl I met. I've dated a lot of babes before, yet all my previous relationships were according to the same scenario. Sooner or later, I always realized that a new date of mine liked my muscles more than she liked me. And Judy was so much different. She enjoyed talking to me and valued my personality. The day we met, we chatted for 2 hours at the house gate and just couldn't stop. We have chatted for far longer, but we got interrupted by Judy's father, who came home from work. Only then did we go home. But the very next morning, we met again in front of the school and practically did not part since then. I've sincerely considered Judy the perfect girl. She was smart, she was beautiful. We've always had something to talk about, and most importantly, she always made her best to understand me. Unlike most other friends, she was always glad to chat with me, and not only about her own problems, but also about mine. You see, usually a girlfriend cannot be considered to be an actual friend. Lots of people find it impossible to be friends with the person you love. I've also thought that these two notions couldn't overlap. Yet with Judy, I've redefined everything. Well, at least I thought so. We had only one problem. There was simply no place for us to spend time alone. At school, we were always interrupted either by curious classmates or teachers, and sometimes even by technicians with their mops and buckets. At my place, there were always tons of people. No, my relatives really liked Judy, but there was no personal space for us two. My sisters almost instantly made friends with my girlfriend. The brothers told me that I was a lucky man, yet I didn't even have my own room to bring Judy to. I shared the room with 2 brothers, and the three of us slept on the same 3-story bed. No luck for Judy and I there. At Judy's home, the situation was no better. Her sick old grandmother didn't go anywhere. She spent all her time indoors, looking after Judy's younger sister. The kid herself was a cute and pleasant child. I easily found common ground with her. Unfortunately, Judy's sister adored Judy and followed her around like a puppy. For no reason, the kid would agree to leave us alone and go to another room. Besides, Judy's mom worked at home, so my girlfriend's home was also not an option. As you see, this state of affairs made my best friend's work offer look like a godsend. I wasn't going good at school, so I had 0 chances to enter university or college. Therefore, I desperately needed some good-paying job. Of course, I myself have been long looking closely to the gyms of our town, dreaming of becoming an instructor at some point in the future. The problem was that at that point in time, I was barely 16. Well-known gyms prefer to hire experienced sportsmen as coaches rather than youths, no matter how promising the latter are. My friend, on the other hand, had nothing to lose. He decided to rely on my knowledge of sports, and it paid off. It turned out I was practically born to become a fitness trainer. My advice really helped people become stronger and healthier, and I knew every piece of equipment like the back of my hand. Some clients didn't trust me at first, of course. They found it hard to follow the commands of a 16-year-old boy. But then I proved all of them that I really knew what I was talking about. And then people started listening to me. In 2 years, I had accumulated a decent amount of money, and upon reaching adulthood, my girlfriend and I began to live together in a rented apartment. Things were going well. I was saving money for a nice engagement ring. I really wanted to propose to Judy in the best possible way, but the trouble came from unexpected source. One day, while going home from work, I bought a lottery ticket. When I was a child, Dad and Mom often bought these, so after I saw the tickets on the shelf, I went nostalgic and got myself one. Just imagine how stunned I was when the next day the news announced that the ticket with my number won $15 million. Judy and I made some grand plans on how to spend all this money. Our own house, expensive cars, marvelous travels, so many things could be done. I wanted to present my best friend with a capacious building and 36 pieces of the most modern gym equipment. I'd have bought my mom and dad a huge family vehicle. And of course, each of my brothers and sisters would have received his or her own flat. Of course, every one of my friends and relatives knew about these plans, and all of them were already looking forward to future happiness. But in 3 days, the lottery representatives contacted me. It turned out that the announcement on TV was wrong. My ticket won nothing. Good thing I haven't managed to buy anything yet. The officials apologized to me, presented me with a symbolic amount of monetary compensation, and left. But my family and friends didn't forgive me this disappointment. I don't really know why, but all of them simultaneously decided that I deceived them and kept all the money for myself. I've tried to tell them the truth, but they just refused to believe me at all. In a single day, I lost my job, my family, my friend, and my girlfriend. The friend with whom we got through the dogs and the quicksand together just fired me and gave me no severance pay. Moreover, he said that only due to our joint memories, he resisted spoiling my reputation altogether. Relatives renounced me all at once. Dad and Mom yelled at me for half an hour straight, accusing me of all mortal sins. Brothers and sisters refused to even talk to me. Out of all the uncles and aunts, not a single one stood by my side. And Judy's betrayal was the hardest one to endure. In the evening when I came home, I saw only bare walls and a folded piece of paper lying in the middle of the room. While I was away, my beloved left, took all the things from our rented apartment with her, and emptied our joint bank account. 1.5 years we've been saving the money together for a rainy day, and she just took the whole sum for herself. In a farewell letter, Judy complained about 2 years of her life spent together with a worthless piece of crap, as she called me. My girlfriend wrote to me that we were breaking up and asked me never to call her again, or she would set the police on me. Well, at least I managed not to get into debt. But now I don't even know how to live on anymore. My whole world collapsed in a single day. Each and every one of my friends and acquaintances turned out to be the abomination who cared only about money. The worst thing is that now I'm just scared to trust anyone. It seems that any new acquaintance would surely betray me as soon as he'd be guaranteed to profit from it. Do you really think that my friends and relatives acted appropriately to the situation? If you are also surprised by their reaction, leave a like and a comment under the video. Thanks in advance for your support.